I'm going to start off by sewing my shoulders, both shoulders, the boubou side and the sleeve side. Making sure that I sew using my 0.5 inch allowance. Then when I'm done with my shoulders, the next thing I'm going to be doing is sewing my side seam, starting from the side with the sleeve. So remember that I left a 1 inch allowance for my side seam, so I'm going to start off sewing from that point all the way down to my hemline. I didn't measure the side seam sewing allowance because I want my sewing to just finish off at about 0.5 inch allowance, so it's not really going to end up at 1 inch allowance. Next, for the boubou side, I'm going to be sewing from my 5 inch opening for my sleeve, and then I'll sew with a 0.5 inch allowance. So you can do 0.5 inch, you can do 1 inch, depending on what exactly you want or how much allowance you want to leave, but 0.5 inch is very much okay for me. So next is my sleeve. I've already hemmed the hemline of my sleeve. I already folded it and sewn it. So I'm just going to pin the side seam of my sleeve, and then I'll mark my 1 inch sewing allowance that I've already left, and then I would sew that part before attaching it to the dress. I'm now going to sew my sleeve seam starting from my hemline towards the bicep line.
It's melody song.
After taking out my pins, I'm going to turn my sleeve right side out so that I can pin my sleeve seam to the armhole of my dress. I'm going to start off by pinning the seam of my sleeve to the side seam of my dress from the armhole, and then I'll pin also the notch on the sleeve, the notch on the top part of the sleeve, to the shoulder seam. This will ensure that there's a balance between my armhole and my sleeve. So I'm going to pin it and then check if I have any excesses on my sleeve, which there is. So I can either just plait the excess into the armhole, or the second option is what I would prefer to do and what I am going to do, which is to take out the excess by reducing the head of my sleeve. So I'm going to be taking out 1 inch from the top of my sleeve, and I'm doing this because I want to reduce the excess that I already have on my sleeve. So that is the best way for you to do it. You do not take out any excess from your bicep line, because if you do that, your sleeve is going to be tight. So having taken out the excess from my sleeve, I'm going to sew in my sleeve into my armhole. and I think I'm very much happy with the result that I have. Next, I'm going to be sewing the arm opening for my boubou side. I'm going to be hemming it neatly just by folding it twice and then sewing on it. Remember that I left a 5-inch opening starting from the shoulder line of the boubou side before I started sewing my side seam. So here it is. Just needs a lot of ironing to press it down, but it's
melody.
next is my hemline. So I'm going to be sewing it neatly twice, folding it by about 0.5 inch for each of the folds. So I'm going to be taking out about 1 inch from my total length. So the last thing for me to do is to hem my neckline, and I'll be using a bias tape for that. You can choose to use a plain cotton bias tape that you can buy from the market, just like I'm doing, or you can take the time and cut out bias strips from your fabric and use it on your neckline, but I prefer to just use the already made bias tape. And from here on, our dress is ready. So this is what my dress looks like. I'm really happy with the results. I like the draping on the boubou side. I like the fact that it's just simple. I like it a lot.